Somewhere on this planet stands a volcano, so enormous and dangerous that almost no explorer has ever dared to stand at its edge. For centuries, people believed the mountain was untouchable, a sleeping giant, constantly releasing smoke while deep rumbling echoed from beneath the earth. Many thought it was too powerful for humans to challenge. But one day, fearless explorers decided to attempt the impossible. They climbed higher and higher toward the crater, unaware that their journey would lead to a discovery hidden for thousands of years. Deep inside the volcano, they found ancient carvings left behind by people who had once studied the mountain, long before modern science existed. At first, the markings seemed like history, but soon they realized something terrifying. The carvings were actually warnings, and just as they began to understand their meaning, the ground beneath their feet started to shake. The volcano was waking up. What happened next became one of the most intense and dangerous discoveries ever captured on camera. A moment where human curiosity met the unstoppable power of nature. Hello everyone. Before we begin, make sure to join our YouTube family by subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is right now. Now, let's get into the story. Ethan Walker had explored deserts, frozen mountains, and abandoned cities, but nothing had prepared him for the mountain standing before him now. Rising far above the horizon like a living giant, the volcano dominated the entire landscape. Its peak disappeared into thick clouds, and dark smoke curled slowly into the sky, as if the earth itself was breathing. The ground beneath Ethan's boots felt warm despite the cool morning air, reminding him that the mountain was alive. For years, explorers and scientists had avoided this region. Satellite images showed strange heat patterns and sudden tremors, yet no official expedition had dared to investigate closely. Local stories described the volcano as cursed, claiming that anyone who ventured too near heard voices carried by the wind. Ethan didn't believe in curses, but he believed in mysteries. And this volcano was the greatest mystery he had ever seen. He wasn't alone. His three teammates, Noah, Lucas, and Daniel, stood beside him, equally stunned by the scale of the mountain. Each of them carried professional exploration gear, cameras, climbing ropes, thermal scanners, and survival packs. They had trained for dangerous environments, but the sheer size of the volcano made them feel small and fragile. As they began walking across the black volcanic plain, the landscape looked almost alien. Hardened lava stretched endlessly in twisted shapes. Frozen waves of stone, created by eruptions long ago. Steam escaped from cracks in the ground, rising in thin white streams. Every few minutes, a deep rumble echoed beneath their feet, subtle but powerful enough to remind them that enormous forces moved below. Noah launched a drone into the air to capture aerial footage. On the monitor, the volcano appeared even more terrifying. Massive fissures glowed faintly red along its slopes, and smoke vents released clouds that drifted across the sky like storm systems. The drone camera revealed something unexpected. A narrow path carved naturally along the mountainside, leading toward the crater rim. "That's our way up," Ethan said quietly. The climb was slow and exhausting. Sharp rocks cut through the soles of their boots, and heat radiated from the ground as they gained elevation. The air smelled strongly of sulfur, forcing them to wear protective masks. Despite the danger, excitement pushed them forward. Every step felt like moving closer to something no human had fully witnessed before. Hours later, they reached the crater's edge. The sight stopped them instantly. Below them churned a massive lake of molten lava, glowing bright orange and yellow like a miniature sun trapped inside the earth. Waves of magma moved slowly, releasing bursts of fire and sparks. Heat rushed upward, forcing the explorers to step back carefully. The sound was overwhelming, a deep roaring, mixed with cracking explosions as gas escaped from beneath the surface. Ethan filmed silently, his hands trembling slightly. This was more than exploration. It was standing at the heart of the planet's power. Lucas scanned the surrounding rock formations and noticed strange patterns etched into the stone near the rim. "Guys, look at this." They gathered around the markings. Unlike natural cracks, these lines formed deliberate shapes, symbols carved into the rock long ago. Daniel brushed away ash carefully, revealing figures drawn beside a mountain, lines representing flowing lava, and groups of people standing at a distance. The carvings looked ancient, weathered by heat and time. "Someone was here before us," Noah whispered. The discovery changed the mood instantly. The volcano wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It had history. Ancient explorers or civilizations had studied it, possibly understanding its behavior long before modern technology existed. As the sun moved higher in the sky, the team followed the carvings along the crater rim. The symbols appeared repeatedly, guiding them toward a darker opening, carved into the rock wall, a tunnel leading inside the volcano itself. Hot air flowed outward from the entrance, carrying the sound of distant rumbling. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Entering meant crossing a boundary few humans had ever dared to cross. They secured ropes and turned on powerful lights. One by one, they stepped into the tunnel. Inside, the temperature changed immediately. The walls shimmered with mineral deposits, reflecting faint orange light from deeper within. The passage sloped downward gradually, and the sounds of the volcano grew louder with every step. Drops of condensed steam fell from the ceiling, hissing as they touched hot stone. The deeper they moved, the more alive the mountain felt. Vibrations traveled through the rock like a heartbeat. After several minutes of careful walking, the tunnel opened slightly, revealing glowing reflections ahead. Lava light flickered across the walls, illuminating enormous rock formations shaped by centuries of eruptions. Ethan paused, realizing something important. They were no longer observing the volcano from outside. They were inside it. And whatever secrets the ancient carvings were warning about lay somewhere deeper in the mountain, waiting to be discovered. The deeper the explorers moved into the volcano, the more the outside world felt distant and unreal. The tunnel narrowed and widened unpredictably, shaped by ancient lava flows that had hardened into twisted walls of black and dark red stone. Their footsteps echoed loudly, mixing with the constant low rumble vibrating through the ground. It felt less like walking through a cave and more like traveling inside a living creature. Ethan led the group carefully, his camera capturing every detail. Orange light flickered ahead, growing brighter with each step. Soon, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber that forced all for explorers to stop in disbelief. Before them stretched an enormous volcanic cavern, far larger than any cave they had ever seen. Rivers of glowing lava flowed slowly across the floor, moving like fiery currents through channels carved naturally into the rock. Massive stone pillars rose from the ground to the ceiling, hundreds of meters above, supporting the cavern like the columns of an ancient underground world. Heat waves distorted the air, making distant shapes shimmer. Despite the danger, the scene was breathtakingly beautiful. Minerals embedded in the walls reflected light, creating glowing patterns across the cavern. It looked almost like stars shining inside the earth. Noah quickly checked the thermal scanner. Temperatures are rising, he said, but still within survival range. For now, as they moved along a narrow rocky ledge beside a lava stream, Lucas noticed something unusual on the cavern wall. He brushed away ash carefully, revealing more carvings clearer and more detailed than the ones near the crater rim. These carvings told a story. Human figures were shown observing the volcano, marking symbols beside smoke clouds and lava flows. Some drawings showed groups moving away from the mountain, while others pointed towards safe paths leading upward. The ancient people had not worshipped the volcano as a god. They had studied it, learning its behavior. They were scientists, Lucas said quietly. Ancient ones. Daniel nodded, tracing one of the symbols. This looks like a warning system. They recorded eruption patterns. The realization amazed them. Long before modern instruments, someone had understood how to predict volcanic activity using observation alone. The carvings were not art, they were survival knowledge passed through generations. Suddenly, a stronger tremor shook the cavern. Small stones rained from above, splashing into the lava with sharp hissing sounds. The glowing rivers began moving faster, bubbles forming on the surface. A deep roar echoed from somewhere deeper inside the mountain. Noah looked at the scanner again, his expression changing instantly. Heat spike. Rapid increase. The volcano was becoming unstable. Ethan filmed quickly, knowing this moment could provide critical evidence. But danger was rising fast. The air grew hotter, and faint cracking sounds echoed through the chamber. Walls? As they prepared to retreat, Daniel noticed a narrow pathway branching off toward a higher tunnel. Near its entrance were carvings showing human figures climbing upward, while lava surged below them. This must be an escape route, he said. Without hesitation, they moved toward it. The passage sloped upward sharply, forcing them to climb over jagged rocks. Behind them, the cavern roared louder as pressure built inside the volcano. The glowing light intensified, casting long shadows that moved like living shapes across the walls. Halfway through the tunnel, a violent tremor nearly knocked them off balance. Dust filled the air, and a loud cracking noise echoed behind them. Ethan turned briefly and saw part of the cavern ceiling collapsing into the lava below, sending sparks and molten rock upward. "Move!" he shouted. They climbed faster despite exhaustion. The heat followed them, making breathing difficult even through masks. Sweat soaked their gear, and every step required effort. But fear pushed them forward. After several minutes that felt like hours, faint daylight appeared ahead. The sight filled them with relief. The tunnel widened, leading toward an opening carved naturally into the mountain's side. As they approached the exit, another massive rumble shook the volcano. A blast of hot air rushed through the tunnel, nearly throwing them forward. The mountain was seconds away from releasing its energy. One by one, they emerged onto a steep rocky slope outside. Fresh air hit their faces as they collapsed briefly, catching their breath. Behind them, the volcano growled like a waking giant. They turned to look back. Smoke thickened above the crater, rising faster than before. The ground continued trembling beneath their feet. Ethan realized they had just witnessed the final warning signs recorded by the ancient carvings. The eruption was coming, and they were standing close enough to witness one of nature's most powerful events unfold before their eyes. The explorers stood on the steep volcanic ridge, breathing heavily after their desperate climb out of the tunnel. The air outside felt cooler, but the ground beneath them was shaken more violently now. Thick black smoke began pouring from the crater above, spreading across the sky like a giant storm cloud. The entire mountain seemed alive, groaning and rumbling as pressure built deep inside the earth. Ethan slowly lifted his camera again, despite the danger. This moment was something very few humans had ever witnessed from such a close distance. Behind him, Noah quickly launched the drone into the sky, hoping to capture aerial footage before the situation became too dangerous. From the drone screen, the scale of the volcano looked even more terrifying. The crater glowed bright red as molten lava churned violently inside. Huge cracks began forming along the mountain's slopes, glowing with intense heat. Steam and ash burst from smaller vents all around the volcano, like giant pressure valves releasing energy. Lucas stared at the mountain with amazement and fear. "The carvings were right," he said quietly. "Everything they recorded is happening exactly the same way." Daniel checked the seismic monitor attached to his backpack. The numbers jumped rapidly. "Major eruption incoming," he warned. Suddenly, the ground shook harder than before. A thunderous explosion erupted from the crater, echoing across the entire valley. A massive column of ash blasted into the sky, rising thousands of meters like a dark tower. Lightning flashed inside the ash cloud as static electricity built from the violent eruption. For a moment, the explorers could only watch in stunned silence. Then the lava came. A glowing river of molten rock spilled over the crater edge and began racing down the volcano's side. It moved faster than they expected, burning everything in its path and lighting the landscape with a terrifying orange glow. "Time to move," Daniel said firmly. They quickly began climbing down the rocky ridge toward a safer distance. Loose stones slid under their boots as tremors continued shaking the ground. Behind them, the eruption grew stronger. Multiple lava streams burst from the mountain, carving fiery paths across the dark volcanic terrain. Ash started falling from the sky like black snow, covering the rocks and their equipment. The air smelled of sulfur and smoke. Even through protective masks, breathing became difficult. But despite the danger, Ethan kept filming while moving. The footage showed the true scale of the eruption, a gigantic volcano releasing enormous energy, reminding them how small humans truly were compared to nature. After nearly an hour of careful descent, the team reached a lower ridge far enough away from the main lava flows. From this safer position, they turned back to observe the volcano. The sight was both terrifying and magnificent. The mountain roared continuously as ash clouds stretched across the sky. Lava rivers glowed like giant cracks of fire across the slopes. Explosions echoed inside the crater, sending glowing rocks high into the air before crashing back down the mountain. Noah guided the drone higher into the sky for a final wide shot. From above, the eruption looked like a massive glowing wound in the earth, surrounded by endless black volcanic land. Lucas stood silently, watching the scene unfold. "Imagine the ancient people who lived here," he said. "They watched this same power thousands of years ago." Daniel nodded. "And they survived because they respected it." Ethan lowered his camera for a moment, thinking about the carvings inside the volcano. Those ancient explorers had not tried to conquer the mountain. Instead, they had studied it carefully, learning its warning signs and recording them so future generations could survive. Now, centuries later, Ethan and his friends had followed the same clues and witnessed the same cycle of nature. As the eruption slowly stabilized, the ash cloud began drifting across the horizon. The lava continued flowing, but less violently now, settling into glowing rivers that would eventually cool and harden into new volcanic rock. The explorers knew they had captured something incredible, proof of ancient knowledge, and one of the most powerful natural events on Earth. But more importantly, they had learned something deeper. Nature was not an enemy to defeat. It was a force to understand. Hours later, as they packed their equipment and began leaving the volcanic valley, the massive mountain still rumbled quietly behind them. Smoke continued rising into the sky, reminding them that the earth was constantly changing beneath their feet. Ethan looked back one final time before disappearing into the distant, rocky landscape. The volcano stood tall against the horizon, powerful and mysterious, guarding its ancient secrets beneath layers of fire and stone. And somewhere deep inside that mountain, hidden tunnels and ancient carvings remained, waiting for the next brave explorers who would dare to step inside and listen to the warnings written in the rock.